I hate to cut off Justin Timberlake, but I will, because it is time for us to start. We're going to leave the doors open for a couple minutes because there's still some people wandering, and I want them to feel like they can still come in. But welcome, my name is Dr. Joelle Hood. You can call me Joelle, and I'm here with the fabulous Janine Antonelli. Janine, give a little wave in the back. And we are co-founders of Thriving University. We like to refer to ourselves as recovering principals. We were teachers and assistant principals, and now we do this work. And we're here with Taking Time to Breathe. We know you've had a lot of choices, so thank you for choosing us. And if some of you have heard this little spiel already, but for those of you just coming in, if you want a copy of this presentation and a hyperlink resource doc, on the left-hand side, you'll see a picture of it. Several times during the session, I'll say, this is on your hyperlink doc. And what I mean by that is I'm going to send you that tonight, and say you want to hear more about ants, not the kind that crawl around your kitchen, but automatic negative thoughts. Then you can go to that hyperlink doc, click on that, and it'll take you right. It's like your roadmap to this giant Google Drive folder full of resources and activities and all kinds of things. So if you're interested in that, scan that QR code. At the end, if you didn't get it, I'll be here and you can scan it again, but I'll send you a copy of the presentation and all that goodness tonight. At Thriving University, we are big fans of Dr. Dan Siegel. Dr. Dan is an author and a researcher and a speaker and all-around good human being, and he has a strategy called Name It to Tame It. And basically the idea is this: when we are caught up in emotional agitation and somebody says, "How are you feeling?" and we have to think about that for a minute and maybe even articulate that, we have to shift to the front part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, this area right here behind your forehead, and just by doing that, by naming it, we tame it. The other thing I want you to remember about your emotions is that you are not them. The word motion is in the word emotion, which is a great reminder that emotions move through us. Think of it like you're the blue sky, and your emotions are like clouds traveling across, right? And sure, some emotions might linger longer than others, but eventually they blow out. And it's a great reminder that emotions aren't permanent. The Irish have a saying in Gaelic, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, but basically it's, "I am sad." And so I want you to think about that. As an English teacher for 13 years, I really believe that words matter. And so I want to challenge you to think about how you speak about your emotions. We usually say, "I am sad," or "I am angry." But whatever we say after the words "I am," we're saying that's who we are. And if you say "I am angry," you're saying that's who you are as a person. And not only is that inaccurate, but it sends kind of a sad and dark, disturbing little message to your brain and your body that somehow you're stuck in that emotion. If instead you said, "I feel sad," or "I'm feeling angry," or "I notice I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed right now," it's just a reminder that this is a temporary feeling. Dr. Dan has another strategy called "What's shareable is bearable," which basically means when we get to share our feelings, it makes life a little bit more bearable. Mr. Rogers, my hero, used to say "what's mentionable is manageable." And at Thriving University, we like to say connection before content. So before we dive into any content today, we're going to give you a chance to connect. So at your tables, try to do this in groups of 3. So if you have like 5, you could do a 3 and a 2. If you have group 6, do 3 and 3, just so that everyone has this kind of good amount to talk. And what you're going to do in your trio is first find out whose birthday is closest to today, because birthday person is going to go first. Birthday person is going to share a cherry, a pit, and a seed. The cherry is something that is going really well in your life. Personal, professional, big, small. Might be you found a parking space, who knows what it is, you got here on time. Something that's going well. Your pit is something that's the pits, that's not going well. It could be personal, professional, big, small, you couldn't find a parking space, you got here late, whatever it was. And then your seed, this is the hardest part, is looking at your pit and going, is there a way that this pit can become a seed for future growth? Okay? Now, keep in mind, you're going to have about a minute and a half apiece, so not a super long time. You don't have to go super in-depth. But birthday person, you're going to go first. After you share your cherry pit seed, you're going to point left or point right, and you'll just go in order. So again, do this in groups of 2 or 3. On your mark, get set, go. You have about 1 more minute. All right, I'm going to bring you back, and I'm going to give you this little signal today. What does this mean? I love you. And today it means I love you, and please be quiet. So when you see it, just kind of catch it and spread it. I guess I was in one session, and I was kind of waving it around, and somebody's like, is that your love lasso? And I'm like, I think it is. It's my love lasso. So we hope you enjoyed that activity. We love it. It is simple, it is powerful, and it is steeped in positive psychology. When we talk about the cherry, it's really orienting ourselves from a place of gratitude. And not Pollyanna, like, oh my gosh, the world's so great. Literally, you're going to say a pit next. What you are doing is acknowledging that despite the pits, despite the chaos and challenges that swirl about us, we still have a lot to be grateful for. When you talk about the pit, if you heard a pit that was similar to yours, that is a great way to engage in shared humanity. When we are suffering, what makes it feel a million times worse is when we feel like we're alone in that suffering. So it's not like you're going, what's your name, Jennifer? Oh my God, Jennifer, you're in pain too? Right on. You're not doing that. But you are going, oh my God, I'm not alone. Thank goodness, somebody else is suffering too. If you heard a pit that was totally different than yours, it's a great way to strengthen empathy. To go, wow, I never thought of that perspective that someone else is going through. One of my favorite things about the pit is that it invites vulnerability. It's pretty easy to share about all the good things in our life. If we have to share what we're struggling with, that can take a little more courage and vulnerability. But if I'm willing to be vulnerable and share my struggle with you, and you respond by being vulnerable and sharing your struggle with me, that is called reciprocal vulnerability. And that, my friends, is how trust is built. Little tiny moments of reciprocal vulnerability. You may not know the people that you're sitting at the table with, but you know them now, and you're going to know them a little bit better before you leave here today, and that's kind of the goal. When we talk about the seed, it trains our brain to look for the good, to look forward, like, what can I learn from this? And it can lead to post-traumatic growth. I'm sure you've heard of post-traumatic stress disorder. That is a thing. And so is post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth happens when someone has been affected by trauma or adversity or challenges, and they find a new way to live their life kind of in a more positive way as a result of that experience. Let me give you an example. 2009 was a very rough year for me physically. I was an assistant principal at the time, and I'm just going to give you the nutshell story. But basically, in January of that year, my appendix burst. And when that happened, they discovered that I had a giant tumor on my kidney, which was cancer. So basically, 2009 went something like this. January, appendix out. February, kidney out. March, hysterectomy. Less than a year later, gallbladder out. It became the joke at work, like, does Joelle have any organs left? I do. That's why I'm standing here. But I share that story with you because prior to that experience, I used to say things like, someday I'm going to travel. After that year, I decided I would not say someday anymore, and I've made a commitment. I go on at least one big trip a year, sometimes 2 trips a year. That year in 2009, I got together with some friends. We worked on a Wednesday, drove to LAX. I'm from Southern California. Drove to LAX, flew to Munich, Germany, went to Oktoberfest Thursday, Friday, Saturday, flew home Sunday, and went to work on Monday. Now, I was a lot younger then. I'm not sure I could do that now. But needless to say, in a few weeks, I'm going to Australia. So I'm just love travel. My life is different because of that experience. The pandemic has affected many people that way, right? There's travel is up, in period. It's kind of like the Japanese art of kintsugi. You know, when a piece of pottery breaks, rather than go, oh, this is broken, I'm going to throw it out, they repair it with precious metal, often gold, and it becomes more beautiful than it was before. And that's the idea with post-traumatic growth. It is not to be confused with toxic positivity. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in our E section of today's workshop, but toxic positivity I know very well because I used to engage in it quite a bit. I didn't know it was bad at the time. But as a young teacher, I felt like it was sort of my job to be Miss Mary Sunshine and, Glenda the Good Witch of the North, sprinkling happiness on everyone. And so if someone came to me with a struggle, sometimes I would say things like, it's not that bad. Look, we could do this, right? Thinking I was doing a really good thing. I had really good intentions and a horrible impact. Because basically what I'm saying to the other person is, get over it. Your pain's not that bad. So I really am mindful to not engage in toxic positivity, and we'll give you the antidote for that, which is empathy, towards the end of the session. So my dissertation was on educator well-being. So I, through that research, through the research of the Thriving University team, we came up with this framework for resilience called taking time to breathe. The B stands for building belonging. R is reflecting on your purpose. E is engaging in self-compassion. A is amplifying attention, awareness, and awe. T is tapping into thankfulness and appreciation. H is harnessing your thoughts. And E is empowering empathy. And so keep in mind, this is an appetizer version. We like to do this as a full day. And so we have a kind of good chunk of time, hour and 45 minutes, but we're going to give you science and strategies for each of those letters in our short time together. I also want to address that today we're going to talk about self-care and community care. But I want to acknowledge that those are not enough. The strategies that you learned today are awesome, and they're for you. And ultimately, you're the only thing that you can control, right? But once you hear the science of why these things are important, I hope that you engage in community care and try and build these things for those around you. And then we need to get really serious about meeting with leaders to create space and structures where the ideas here become part of the norm, part of the rituals that we have, so that they can be, sustainable. Our brain loves to mirror other people. Don't do it now, but if you were to yawn, it might cause a chain reaction. Probably just the fact that I said the word yawn could spark you. We don't intend to copy other people. You might notice throughout the session that if you're sitting like this, you might look at your table and notice, wow, somebody else is sitting like that too. It's not that you're intentionally trying to copy it. Again, your brain just likes to mirror. We also have this thing called emotional contagion. If you've ever walked into a room and you've been in a great mood, you're like, woo, it's a great day, it's a great day. And then you're like, wah, 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 and you just sort of feel like the life's being sucked out of you. That's emotional contagion. And it can happen on the flip side, too. You can walk into a room feeling really down and discouraged, and all of a sudden you feel yourself lifted up. Well, I'm going to give us a little example. We're going to do an activity related to emotional contagion. I'm going to put the mic down for a minute, and I'm going to talk really loud. So what's going to happen, don't worry, you will not have to dance like Justin Timberlake in this activity. But what you will do is you will stand up, and you will get with a partner, and you'll stand just like a couple feet away from them. So Janine and I are going to model this for you. And what you're going to do is I'm going to yell out a category, kind of like Family Feud. So for our purposes, let's do types of nuts. Cheese. Let's go to candy. Wine. Candy. Types of candy. So what you're going to do, first step, is look at your friend, your partner, and say, are you ready? I'm not ready, so hold on. Okay, got one. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. So make sure they're ready, and then you're going to do kind of like rock, paper, scissors. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, and you're going to yell out an answer. Your goal is to get the same answer as your partner. If you get it, you're going to be like, woo! If you don't get it, you're going to be like, dang, and then you're going to try again, okay? And you're going to have like 20 to 30 seconds per little category. Okay, got one? 1, 2, 3. Sweet tarts. Not candy. Sweet tarts are candy. It's not chocolate. We didn't say chocolate. I don't have one. Okay, I don't have one. Okay. Halloween candy. Okay. If you don't have a partner, let us know. No threes. 3 is too hard. 3 is too hard. Janine will jump in. She needs a partner. She needs a partner. There you go. Anybody else? All right. It's going to get really loud in here. So I'll be giving you my I love you signal to bring you back. Hopefully somebody will see it, and there you go. Okay, so the category, let's just start off easy. I don't know how much coffee you've had this morning. So let's start off with colors. Colors. Make sure your partner's ready before you do the 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm bringing you back. I love you. Let's go with, my mind's at a blank right now. Types of sports? All right, let's do that. Apparently, I have not had enough coffee yet. Okay, ready? Types of sports. Go. All right, I'm bringing you back. All right, we're going to do one more. Here we go. Types of animals you would find on a safari. Ready? Go. You're on fire. All right, I love you. Thank your partner and have a seat. Nice. That's okay. It's okay. I'm going to explain that to you right now. So here's the deal. If you got it right, you don't even know why you felt like you just won the lotto, but you did. Because your brain likes that, right? But if you got it wrong, your brain still loved it because you were doing this. 1, 2, 3 in sync. And your brain loves doing things in sync. Whether that's walking with people or singing with people or tapping with people or laughing with people, your brain loves that. It releases all kinds of happy chemicals in our brain. And what did you notice about the energy in the room? It went up. Even if you got it wrong, people were laughing, right? Like it was funny. I don't know why it's so funny, but it works every time. So that's just an example of emotional contagion in a good way, right? We spread laughter in the room. So knowing that our emotions, whether they're happy or not so happy, are rippling out to everybody around us, our friends, our family, our coworkers, our students, don't we want to be really intentional about showing up as our best possible selves? Because we are impacting other people, whether we know it or not. We create the climate in the rooms we're in. The energy starts with us. So before we dive into the framework, we're gonna, I'm gonna put this mic down for a minute, but I'll talk really loud, so hopefully you hear me. I need to use my hands. Okay, so we're gonna engage in 3 deep breaths together. So what I'd like you to do is be hands-free for just a moment. Put your feet flat on the floor and close your eyes. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, totally okay. Just look down at the table or the floor so you're not distracted and nobody thinks you're checking them out while their eyes are closed. And we're going to take these breaths. We're going to breathe in through our nose like we're smelling the roses. We're going to pause for just a sec. Then we're going to exhale out of I don't know about you, but I feel a noticeable shift in my brain and my body when I do those breaths. And the science behind that is when we breathe in through our nose, we stimulate the vagus nerve. It's the largest bundle of nerves in our body, and it serves to slow our heart rate, lower our blood pressure. If you have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or two fingers that know how to take a pulse, you can actually get immediate biofeedback. You can, oftentimes, I will look at my heart rate. I'll engage in 30 seconds of that deep breathing and literally watch my heart rate go down. It's an important skill for you and one that you can share with students and your friends and family as well. Clicker. All right. So we're going to start with building belonging. We are going to touch on this today. If belonging is something that really interests you, tomorrow at this very same time in this very same room, we're going to spend a whole session on belonging. That doesn't repeat what you hear today. So if you're interested in that, come back. All right, so if we're going to talk about belonging, it's important that we know what it is. Belonging is not a global feeling. It's not like you belong to the world or you don't. Belonging is very context specific, meaning I can walk into one room, a classroom, a staff room, an office, somebody's living room, and I can be like, feels good here. I can put my hair in the messy bun. I can ask questions and not feel dumb. I can state my opinion, and even if they totally disagree with me, they still value me as a person. That is belonging. I can leave that room and go into the room right next door, a different classroom, a different staff room, a different office, a different living room, and I can be like, ooh, I got to walk on eggshells here. I definitely cannot be I can't be Joelle. I need to edit. I definitely don't want to ask that question because they're going to think I'm dumb. Don't want to give that opinion. They're totally going to judge me for that. Oh my God, did she just roll her eyes at me? Did he just talk about me? Did they just all go to lunch and not even include me? That is a feeling of not belonging. And I want to be clear that belonging and fitting in are not the same thing. Fitting in means I have to change who I am so that you value me. Belonging means I get to be who I am and you value me. And you might say, well, who cares? I mean, buck up, Buttercup. Is it really that important? And the answer is 1,000,000 times yes. Our brains are built to belong. The Surgeon General thought so much so, he just released a giant report on the state of loneliness in our country. In that report, and actually it came out years before, there's a research study that found that a feeling of social isolation, and I'm not talking about, physical isolation, and social isolation you could feel in this room right now, if you felt like in a room full of people, if you feel like you don't belong. That loneliness is as harmful to your body as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I'm not making that up. You can see that slide is cited. I'll send you a copy tonight. If you think about elderly people that you know, when they start to lose their social circles, you can almost watch their physical health deteriorate. And the same is happening to us, too. It just might show up in a different way. When we feel socially isolated, our risk for anxiety and depression and poor sleep all goes up, which negatively impacts our health, physical and emotional health, our engagement, and our performance at work. On the flip side, every time we have a great conversation with somebody, we have shared laughter, we do in sync, right? When you get a hug from somebody, your stress levels go down. There's actually a measurable drop in cortisol, the stress hormone. Your immune system gets bolstered. You fight colds more effectively. You fight wounds, fight diseases like cancer more effectively. Even your wounds heal faster, which we need right now, right, as we go into winter. And your heart literally gets stronger. In fact, your whole cardiovascular system works better when you have that sense of belonging and connection. Our brains are wired to belong. Now, I love to go out to eat, and so my husband and I go out to eat quite a bit, and when we do, it never fails. We look around at the tables near us, and we'll see couples on dates, we'll see families together, we'll see groups of friends, and nobody will be talking, and they will all be doing this on their phone. And if I'm being totally transparent and honest, sometimes that's my husband and I, too, right? It's so easy to fall into that trap. Now, I'm not saying I have anything against phones, smartphones. I love my smartphone or social media. I'm saying that the problem lies when we're so connected to everybody out there and we're disconnected from the very people we're sitting at a table with. Now, I have 5 dogs. Hot tip number 1, don't have 5 dogs. It's a lot of dogs. And, but I do, these are them. And, I travel a lot for work. And frankly, it probably doesn't even matter if I'm traveling for work. It could be when I'm traveling to the grocery store and back. When I come back home, these dogs go nutso. And they're not well behaved at all. And they just want all my attention. And so there's no peace for me until I give them what's called the flashlight of attention. Now, this is going to make me sound like a crazy dog lady, but #authentic. And this is what I have to do. I have to look them in the eye and hold their head and say their name, or they will not leave me alone. So it goes something like this. Hi, Kaya, how are you today? Hi, Miss Bailey. Hi, Siggy. Hi, Bogey. Hi, Lucky. How's your hip today, Lucky? Right? If I do that, they're like, she saw me. And they go on their merry way. If I don't do that, they continue to harass me. So this made perfect sense. I actually thought back to when I was a teacher, and I was like, I had to do this with kids. I mean, I didn't have to hold their head, but I did have to look them in the eye and say their name, or they would spend a whole class period trying to get my attention in some other way, usually not positive. So this made sense to me. So I come home, I give the dogs a flashlight, I go over to the kitchen counter, I'm looking at the mail, at the bills, or the checks, what's in the fridge, and my husband will be standing there, and he's like, hello, here I am, And I'm like, oh, yeah, there you are. And so because he wasn't, pardon the pun, hounding me like the dogs, it was so easy to get caught up in immediately being busy without giving him the flashlight of attention. And I use that language because I want you to take it with you. We have a new rule at our house, the flashlight of attention rule. When either one of us have been gone, when we come back, there's at least 10 minutes. No TV, no phone, no computer, nothing. Just each other. At first, it was awkward. Kind of like, hey, how was your day? Because we get out of that habit. We're so used to all this other distraction. So I want you to remember that people want that flashlight of attention. I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like in the workplace. Oh, maybe not. Hold on. Okay, now we'll try it again.
Okay, there is a subconscious reaction to these devices when we use them. Okay? What if I were to hold my phone while I'm talking to you? I'm not checking it, it's not buzzing, it's not beeping. I'm not even nothing. I'm just holding it. Do you feel at this moment that you are the most important thing to me right now? No, you do not. Because there's a subconscious reaction we have to the device. When it is out, it makes the people around us feel that they are less important. So when we're walking down the halls in our offices and somebody says, hey boss, can I ask you a question? We go, sure, what's on your mind? We've just told them they're not that important. Or we can go, sure, what's on your mind? And if you don't have a pocket, find a shelf, put it on the shelf, come back and say, sure, what's on your mind? When we show up to a meeting, or a lunch, or a dinner, with our colleagues, our clients, or our friends, or our families, and we put the phone on the table, we have announced to everyone in the room that they are not that important to us. And by the way, putting the phone upside down is not more polite.
That was my strategy.
My favorite one is in the meeting or at a lunch with someone that the phone will ring and the caller ID will pop up and they will go, I'm not going to get it. Oh, so magnanimous. Oh, lucky to eat with you today. Or they could just put the damn thing away. You can tell how addicted we are. When somebody pulls out their phone when you're with them, how uncomfortable does that make us feel? You're walking down the street with someone, they pull their phone out. We feel stupid, so what do? We pull our phones out. We're so addicted. Somebody goes to the bathroom when we're at dinner, and what do we have to sit there by ourselves? God forbid we should look around the room for 5 minutes. We pull our phones out. Meetings, awful. What do we do when a meeting happens, right? Everybody's sitting waiting for the meeting to start. Bob's running a few minutes late. Bob's here? Okay, start the meeting. Do you know when relationships are built? All that in between time. Thank you very much.
Again, I have nothing against smartphones, but sometimes they get in the way of our making connections with others. So I give you that phrase again, the flashlight of attention, so that you can think about, who needs your flashlight of attention? People want to be seen. They want to feel felt. And by that I mean they want, you get them, right? And we need their flashlight of attention. They need our flashlight of attention. When I send you a copy of this later, I would love for you to journal, kind of look at this slide and journal on it. How present are you when you're with your loved ones, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your students? How do you think you and your relationships could shift if you were able to be more present? Who needs your flashlight of attention? And whose flashlight of attention do you need? Flashlight of attention doesn't have to be long. It could be 1 or 2 minutes. But it just means you're not multitasking. You're not doing anything else but giving someone your attention. Now, this goes back to belonging. The American Psychological Association says that the primary factor in well-being and resilience is having caring and supportive relationships, both within our families and outside of our families. So how do we start prioritizing this? So I'm an introvert. People don't believe that about me because I speak for a living, but truly I am. I guess I'm an extroverted introvert. I guess that's a term. But I love to be home with my dogs and my husband. And when someone asks me to go out, my first response is, I have to get dressed and go out. It would be very easy for me to stay at home, especially because I travel a lot for work. But because I know the science of belonging, I have to push myself to do it. I know how important it is. And so for me, my number one strategy is to put it on the calendar. I have a planner, and at the beginning of each week, I literally am writing down, who am I going to call? Who am I going to text? Who am I going to go have a glass of wine with? Who am I going to go for a walk with? Maybe we can walk while we have a glass of wine. I don't know. But I literally put it on the calendar because I'm very good about to-do lists for work, and I had to become good at to-do lists for me. The second thing up there is a picture of a Zoom, again with a wine glass. Maybe that's a theme, I'm not sure. But we Zoomed a lot, right, during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, at the time, my parents, whose names are Ken and Barbie, by the way. I'm not making that up. Those are my parents' names. They don't look like Ken and Barbie, but that's who they are. They couldn't leave. They're in a senior facility, and so we had to Zoom. I had to teach my 86-year-old at the time father how to Zoom over the phone. I needed many glasses of wine in order to do that. But it started a tradition of this Hood family Zoom, where we could get on once a week. At first, they were an hour, and then we knew enough about each other's lives that we shortened them to about a half hour just to check in. And it became such a nice feeling to see their faces. And my brother lives in a different area. My sister lives in a different area. And so I encourage you, if you have friends, who live 30 minutes away or live 3,000 miles away, set up a Zoom. A Zoom goes on the calendar too, right? And just have like a breakfast or lunch or a happy hour with them. Start or join a club. It doesn't have to be a book club, could be a book club, but find others who like what you do. Maybe there's a Zumba club, maybe there's a hiking club, maybe there's a underwater basket weaving club. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Find people who like what you like and connect with them. Then, of course, you can send, snail mail letters, you can send texts, you can make phone calls, and then on the other side there it says lunch roulette. If you have a roulette wheel, you can do it that way, but the easiest way is to just write down all the names of your colleagues on little pieces of paper and put them in a bowl, and then challenge yourself. Once a week, twice a week, once a month, twice a month, pull out a name and invite that person to have lunch with you. We are creatures of habit. We park in that same parking spot, and God forbid if somebody tries to get in our spot. We go to the same restroom stall. Check that out while you're at the conference. Notice if you're still drawn to that same stall. And we eat lunch with the same people. It feels comfortable, and that's great. But we also need to expand. So reach out of your comfort zone. I'm going to give you a chance to reach out of your comfort zone right now. So what I'd like you to do is scan this QR code, or there's also a URL, a bit.ly up there, if you'd rather type it in. And I'm going to show you what it looks like after I see kind of phones go down and you've scanned. If you don't get it, don't fret. It's just important that at least, a couple people at your table have it, because you're going to do this activity in your trios. Bless you. Okay, I'm going to come out of this for just a minute. If you didn't get it, I'll bring it back up in just a minute. The person who's going to be going first in this activity is the person with the longest hair in your trio, so you can figure that out in just a moment. And you're going to see this. Make this a little bit bigger. Now, mine might look a little bit more blingy because I'm logged in, but it's the same questions. You're going to click Start. And then you can either click the words spin it. I prefer to think I'm in Vegas, and I like to actually spin the wheel with my finger. and a question will come up. Do you wish you could hear what other people are thinking, why or why not? Oh my goodness, no. I do not want to know what other people are thinking. I already have my own guesses and it's way too much information. So I would read my question, I would answer my question, and then the next person would go and spin. So if you don't get it on your phone, somebody could spin for you. But I'll put that back up. You have about 4 minutes to play. Long-haired person, you're first. Get into trios so that you have plenty of time. 2 or 3s. You have about 30 more seconds to play. Keep it going. Keep it going. All right. I love you, and I'm bringing you back. I love you. I get you rowdy, and then I want you to come back. Got my love lasso. All right. So, hot tip about that wheel. You have that link now because it's on your hyperlink doc that I'm sending you, so you can just use ours. That website is free. You could also create your own. Any teachers in the room? Hot tip for teachers. Start with that wheel, build community, but then make your own wheel and add content questions so they don't know if they're going to get a question like, would you rather fly or be invisible, or a math problem, or a question about yesterday's reading. So really fun. If you're looking for questions to build community, we have these. They're called Take a Dip, Take a Dive. Take a dip questions are very low risk. When you're just starting to get to know someone, you might feel a little bit nervous. So one of the K3, they come in K3, 4, 6, and 712. The 712s you can use with adults at a staff meeting or happy hour tonight and make a new friend. But the K3 question that's take a dip might be like, would you rather slide down a rainbow or jump on a cloud? The take a dive questions go a little bit further. What is one thing you have that you don't like to share with anybody else? right? And so if you're looking for these, they're at our table, so come visit us in the exhibit hall. You can check out the Take a Dip, Take a Dive questions. Also, we have a ton of free resources, so those are for sale. These are a bunch of free resources on our website. You can just go to the link. This is on your hyperlink doc too. Click on it, and you can download all kinds of things focused on building belonging. The big idea here is that we need to seek out social connection for ourselves. And remember I said community care. So now that you know the science about why belonging is so important, now you notice how good it feels when you have that sense of connection, because I watched you during this, there was laughter again, right? That you want to build that for your colleagues and your students as well. We're not really talking about students in this session. This is all about just us. But tomorrow, if you want more belonging ideas, we'll talk about belonging specifically for students. All right, we're going to dive into our next letter, reflecting on our purpose. I love this quote by David Viscott. He says, "The purpose of life is to discover your gift. The work of life is to develop it, and the meaning of life is to give your gift away." Do you know that people with a strong sense of meaning and purpose feel less stress and anxiety even after a super stressful day? And people with a strong sense of purpose actually live 7 years longer than those who don't. It's really important. Now, knowing this information can be difficult for me sometimes. Before the pandemic, right before it shut everything down, I was visiting my parents. They live in Northern California. I live in Southern California. And my mom my parents were ministers. My dad just passed away a few months ago in May. But they were ministers. And my mom in particular used to travel all across country speaking at all these women's Christian conferences. I'm a preacher's kid. A naughty one, but I'm a preacher's kid. And so my mom said to me when I was visiting her, she said, "Joey," because no one in my family calls me Joelle, they call me Joey, and I'm not making fun of my mom. That's literally what her voice sounds like. So there's her picture. I'm just trying to channel her right now so you can hear her. She's like, "Joey, I don't know what my purpose is anymore. I mean, I used to travel the country and speak, but I can't do that anymore." Because at that time, my mom was 86 and in the starts of dementia. So there's no way she could do that kind of stuff. Now, she says that to me, I freak out inside because I'm like, oh my gosh, she needs a reason to get up in the morning. She needs to live 7 years longer. But I don't want to scare her, so I don't say any of that stuff. I say to her, "Okay, Mom, we were on our way out to lunch." So I said, "Let's go to lunch. When we come back, we'll sit and explore your purpose." "Okay." So we go to this restaurant called the Claim Jumper, her favorite restaurant. They have this like mother-lode giant carrot cake that's like this big. And so we go have lunch, and we're leaving the restaurant. We're walking across the lobby. She's a few steps ahead of me. And as I mentioned, she's having some dementia. So I'm a little vigilant around her. Like I'm, always watching, making sure everything's okay. Well, she's walking, and all of a sudden she veers off, and she goes and starts talking to this lady, a stranger. And so I'm not sure what to do. I'm just kind of watching. And she says something to this lady, and this lady looks at my mom really weird. And I'm like, what's happening? Do I need to get in there? Then the lady starts crying. Then, all of a sudden, she hugs my mom. My mom hugs her back. They're exchanging some kind of words. I have no idea what's happening. But then they walk away. And so I catch up with my mom, and I'm like, "Mom, who was that lady?" "Oh, I don't know her." I'm like, "Okay, well, what did you say to that lady?" And she said, "Something told me that I needed to say something to her, so I just went up to her and said, 'I really like your face. You have such a nice face.'" And I laugh because, no lie, this is who my mom has been my whole life. She would always go up to people and say that, and it was very embarrassing as a teenager, but now I appreciate it. And so she goes, "But when I said that to her, she just started crying, and she said, 'You have no idea how much I needed to hear that today.'" And I look at my mom, and I go, "Mom, that's your purpose." She goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "You don't need to go speak to 500 people or 100 people or 5 people. You made one lady, a total stranger, in the Claim Jumper restaurant lobby feel seen, feel valued, feel special. That could be your goal every day." At that time, they were living in a place called the Pines. I go, "You could make one person at the Pines feel like that every day." "Do you think so? Because I think I would love that purpose." I go, "Yes, Mom, I think so." Now, I share that story with you because I think sometimes we get caught up in that our purpose has to be big and bold and grand, when it could be something incredibly simple, like making a person feel valued and special every day. Teachers in particular who find meaning in their work are healthier, even when being asked to do a lot of unreasonable tasks, which, let's face it, has been the last few years, right? And so meaningful work can be a protective factor. we work with a lot of educators all over the country and leaders, and many of them around finding their why. And we were working with a group in Franklin, Tennessee, and of administrators, and one of the administrators went back to his site, and he asked every staff member, not just teachers, custodian, secretary, teachers, counselors, everybody, to come up with their why, and not just to come up with it, but to post it. And then they took pictures and sent it to us, hashtag I love my job. And this one really stood out to me. Mrs. Dar teaches music. She says, my why, music helped me to find my voice, both literally and figuratively. I teach so that I can help others find their voice too. I have to imagine there was many days during the pandemic when Mrs. Dar did not want to be at work, that she's like, this sucks, this is too hard, I don't want to be here, and she gets to work, and then that's on her door, and she says, oh yeah, but I'm here to help others find their voice. All the other stuff kind of falls away. By the way, teaching is not a why. Teaching is a what. Teaching is a how. So start asking yourself, why do I teach? Sometimes people will say, it's because I want to be like that high school teacher I had who really connected with me. So connecting with youth, that's your why. Teaching's just how you're doing it. Other people will say, I want to empower kids with math. That's a skill they're going to need their entire lives. It's critical. So empowering kids with math is your why. Teaching is how you're doing it. So just start thinking about it. If you haven't started thinking about your why, in whatever job you have, don't despair. Many adults are not thinking about their why, but I hope this starts that spark in your head to start thinking about, why do I do this work? What is my passion behind whatever it is that I'm doing? And so what I'd like you to do is just kind of get with one partner right now. So turn into a pair share. And if you're a 3 at your table, maybe look at another table that's odd numbered and just get with another person. I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to answer these questions. And so let me see what I allotted. I think I did 4 minutes. Let's see. 3 minutes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give 90 seconds for the first person to just ask questions. And you can go in any order you want. And then I'll call out switch. Don't switch early. And then the other partner will have 90 seconds to just ask. And you can ask in any order you want. But here are the questions. What activities make you feel alive, useful, strong? Think out of the box. It doesn't have to be related to work. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's surfing. Maybe it's volunteering, whatever it is. What do people compliment you on? What do they ask you for help with? They go, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. Could you help me? What are some of those things? What can you work on and lose all track of time because you're so engaged in it? For me, when I'm creating a presentation, I'm like trying to find the perfect word and the perfect picture and the border and is this right? And all of a sudden I'll look at the clock and 3 hours have gone by and I haven't moved. I haven't taken a drink of water. I haven't gone to the bathroom. I'm not saying that's healthy, but I'm saying like I'm so in the zone. And that's when I know that I'm doing something I love to do. And the last question, what was a time when you gave of yourself to help someone else after which you felt unbelievably good, like you had really done something that mattered? Okay? So the person going first, the person who's going to ask the questions first, is the person who most recently ate a salad. So figure out who salad person is. Salad person is going to go. Maybe you two could pair up right here, because then you're even. Oh, no, you're not. You have 6. We'll find you something. Okay, on your mark, get set, look for a partner. I'm going to help you. All right, stop. Switch. Non-salad person. You are now the question asker. Ready? Steady. Go. All right, stop. I love you. Thank you, partner. I told you this is the appetizer version, so we got to do these in little chunks. All right. I hope that got you to start thinking about that. When you get a copy of this presentation, you might relook at that slide and journal about those questions. Another thing that I'd love for you to do, and this is, you're going to get a Taking Time to Breathe ebook that I'll email you tonight, and then also this is in that and on your hyperlink resource doc, but it's called the Ikigai Toolkit. You may have heard of Ikigai before. It's a Japanese term. It translates into reason for being. I like to say your purpose on the planet. And basically what you do in the Ikigai Toolkit is you think about all the things you love to do, the things that you're good at, the things that the world needs, and what you can get paid to do, and that sweet spot in the middle is your Ikigai or purpose. Now, when I was a principal, I served students, 150. It was the biggest school of its kind in California at the time. 150 students who'd been expelled, were on probation, or court-appointed group home placement. It was a tough crowd. I loved it. Those are my peeps. And I had one teacher there who teaching was a second career for him, and he was really struggling to get along with kids. And at our school, it was all about relationship first. If they did not have a relationship with you, there was no learning going to happen. So I called him into my office, and I said, hey, what do you love to do when you're not at work? And he's like, what? I go, what do you do on the weekends? What is your thing? And he goes, well, I weld things. I'm an artist, and I create these metal sculptures, and I sell them to the wineries in Temecula, which is where we live. And I was like, what? I had no idea. I go, you do? I go, first of all, can I have one? He said, yes. And I have this beautiful tree sculpture hanging in my house. And then I said, second, do you want to teach our kids how to weld? He's like, I don't know. Can I do that? I'm like, I don't know. So I go to my director. And I'm like, hey, I need this welding class at Arlington. And my director, without missing a beat, is like, Joelle, your kids are expelled. We're not giving them fire. And I'm like, but we really need it. And I'm sort of relentless and, persistent. So finally, he got tired of hearing me. He's like, fine, you can have your little welding class. So here was this guy doing what he loved to do, what he was really good at. Did the world need it? I don't know about the world, but our little world needed it. Our students needed it. He needed it. Our school needed it. And he was already getting paid to do it. It changed his whole relationship with students at our school. It changed his whole excitement for coming to work. So much so that I decided to interview every single staff member at my site and find out what they love to do and figure out a way to get it to come into our school. So I was interviewing an instructional assistant. Her name was Adriana. I said, Adriana, what do you do on the weekends? What do you love to do? She's like, I go garage sale shopping. Like, I'm actually really good at it. Like, I know, like, how to bargain and negotiate, and I know how much things should cost. And, and I look at her and I go, oh my gosh, we're trying to raise money to take 16 kids to DC and New York on a field trip. We need to have a fundraiser. We need to have a yard sale. Do you want to be in charge of it? She's like, can I? I'm like, oh, yeah, you can, right? And so here was Adriana, who was a great instructional assistant, don't get me wrong. Very shy, kind of meek. All of a sudden, here she was doing what she loved to do. She was really good at it. Again, did the world need it? I don't know about the world, but our students needed it, our school needed it, she needed it, and she was already getting paid to do it. And she just became so empowered and walked with a new confidence because she was bringing something she loved to do and was passionate about to work. So I encourage you to think about what you love to do, and even if you think it's not related to education at all, and bring it in. And because this is community care, think about your colleagues. What do they love to do, and how can you spark that in them as well? Another way to tap into purpose is the opposite of thinking what you love to do and thinking about instead what breaks your heart. Unfortunately, there's so many things to choose from. Racial and social injustice, war, multiple wars, poverty, lonely senior citizens, animal cruelty. You make a list of all the things that break your heart. And then looking at that big list, pick one thing. And with that one thing, think without limits. No monetary limits, no physical limits. If you could make a difference, if you could wave a magic wand and fix that situation, what would you do? And then looking at that big grand list and knowing you can't do all of those things all at once, what is just one step that you can take towards positive change? I'm going to be really honest. Heartbreak mapping, I think, is an incredibly powerful way to tap into our purpose, is when we think about what breaks our hearts and what we want to become passionate about. I can tell you a heartbreak for me right now is that people are leaving education. And I really believe it's because we don't take care of our adults. And that's a heartbreak, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to fix that, right, and create belonging and employee engagement. Home fun. I told you words matter, and so as an English teacher, I never gave out homework. I only gave out home fun, because learning is fun. So I'm giving you some home fun, and that is on your hyperlink doc, you'll see a little link to a purpose assessment. You can click on that and just take it, see where you are, and it's just a nice reflection. So big ideas. When you know your why, your what, whatever that what is, making copies, correcting papers, has more impact. And try and figure out a way to bring your passion and purpose into the work you do, regardless of what that work is. All right, we're jumping into our next letter, engaging in self-compassion. There are two researchers on self-compassion that we really love, Dr. Kristen Neff and Dr. Christopher Germer. And Germer says, a moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. A string of such moments can change the course of your life. So what is self-compassion? Definition, super easy. Showing kindness and compassion to yourself like you would to somebody you care about. Sounds super easy. Why don't we do it? I think there are so many benefits if we would just stop and ponder that for a minute. When we engage in self-compassion, it increases our optimism, our happiness, our curiosity, our connectedness, our life satisfaction. It decreases things like self-criticism, depression, and anxiety. So if it has all of these benefits, and the definition seems so simple, why don't we do it? I think we get stuck on these myths of self-compassion. That somehow if I engage in self-compassion, I'm going to be just throwing a pity party for myself. Or it's a form of weakness, or it's going to make me complacent. Or at the other end of the spectrum, that it's going to be narcissistic or selfish if I engage in self-compassion. I want to assure you, if you engage in self-compassion, not only will you be getting all of these benefits that I mentioned, but everyone around you will thank you too. Because how we show up when we're taking good care of ourselves is different, it's better than how we show up when we're not taking care of ourselves. I'm going to show you a clip right now, and as you're watching this and listening to it, I want you to just think about whether you hear any of these voices in your head. Hold on just a second. Sorry, I'm going to go back. It came up.
No, you're 100%.
My speaker's louder, so I'm going to connect it.
Hi, Kaz. Hi, Sean. As you know, we are producing a course called The Power of Self-Compassion. So we're just talking to people today about how they treat themselves. Do you have a critical voice? And if so, What do you find it saying to you?
I definitely have a critical voice. I think everybody does. And I think they all start from when you're a kid. So, I think all the things that my parents said, I hear, but it's normally about not doing a good job.
It's constantly stopping me as I try to complete thoughts or try to make steps forward.
It's a voice that always tells me that I'm not enough, or that I need to do better, or that there's something about me that I have to change.
When you fail or make a mistake, what types of things run through your mind?
I'm not worthy. Everybody's going to see my mistake. Nobody else makes mistakes like I do.
You're stupid. I can't believe you forgot something easy. This was basic. Why are you having so much trouble doing something so simple?
People don't want me around, that I'm uninteresting, boring, and or just too weird for people's company.
It says that I should have done better, and sometimes it says mean words about myself.
It's probably the loudest thing that's usually coming through my head before anything else is at least ringing that failure over and over again.
And let me give you a scenario where a friend of yours comes to you, has made a mistake, and what would you say to that friend?
Well, first thing I would tell them that it's okay. You don't need to feel all the weight of this.
Most likely you're holding on to this more tightly than anybody else.
This in no way, reflects your character or reflects your ability to do something. Definitely a lot kinder to my friends than I am to myself.
How do you think you would change if you used that same voice that you use towards your friends on yourself during those moments of failure and mistakes?
I think it would be, incredible because you're not going to talk to your friends the way that you talk to yourself sometimes. And I think that if you're constantly kind of reassuring yourself and letting yourself know that you are enough, then your thought process will change.
When you treat yourself like you do somebody else, you start feeling better, I think, right away, and you keep it in context much more instead of letting things be blown out of proportion.
I think I would have a lot less anxiety in my day-to-day. I think there would be kind of a weight lifted.
It would definitely make me feel better and happier, because when I usually say, when that voice that says mean stuff in my head, I'm not really happy and sad.
How could the world look differently if we were more compassionate towards ourselves?
I think the world would work better. I think through compassion and self-compassion, we all would just recognize that we're all human.
As a society, we could learn to love one another and show that love on a regular basis. I think that this world would be perfect.
There's a saying that if you love yourself, then you can love others. Well, sometimes I believe it goes in the reverse, and that if you can show that compassion that you show to others and bring it into yourself, I think that's where true growth can happen.
I think it would be magical. That's really the only word for it. Magical, to be able to reflect on ourselves from a place of love rather than criticism.
I don't know about you, but I've heard some of those voices in my head. That activity that they were doing in that clip is called How Would You Treat a Friend? And this is on your hyperlink doc, so you could go through this yourself. Again, you think about a struggle that you're having, write about that. You then think about, how would I show up for a friend who was going through this same thing? And you write, what would you do? What would you say? What tone of voice would you use? And then you turn around and do that for yourself. Kristen Neff has another self-compassion activity called the self-compassion break. I love this one. And in this one, you first must recognize that you're having a moment of suffering. And you might say, Judge, well, I'm going to know if I'm suffering. I'm going to say no. I'm going to push back on that. I think we don't want to notice our moments of suffering, so we shove that stuff down, right? This requires you to go, you know what, this moment sucks. This hurts. This is painful. This is uncomfortable. The second thing that you do is recognize that suffering is a part of life. And I don't say that to sound cold or callous. I say it because, number one, it's true. Every single one of us in this room has suffered. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but every single one of us in this room is going to suffer again. And the odds are that many of us, if not most of us, if not all of us in this room, are suffering in some way right now that other people don't know about. Again, you're not celebrating someone else's pain, but it's comforting to go, you know what, someone else is facing the same struggle right now. I may not know who they are, but someone else is dealing with this too. And then the third thing is just to say something kind to yourself in whatever words make sense to you. My go-to phrase of choice is to say, Joelle, just give yourself some grace. You're doing the best you can with what you got. Kristen Neff had a book come out a couple years ago called Fierce Self-Compassion. And in that book, she recognizes that we must have that tender self-compassion that I've just talked about, being kind to ourselves, but we must also have fierce self-compassion, which means we have to set boundaries. We have to be able to say no to some things. We have to put ourselves first in many occasions that we do not. And so let me get this through to you. What you say no to is just as important as what you say yes to. When you say no to something, you're creating space to say yes to something else. When you say yes to something, you're taking away space to say yes to something else. I mean, you only have 24 hours in a day, right? And so I want you to be really mindful, not that you're going to say no to everything you don't want to do. Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, but I want you to also create space to say yes to you. I mentioned I'm a planner lady. Like, I write in my planner, and at the beginning of each week, I get really intentional. What am I going to do this week that feels good to me personally? I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day. I'm going to journal, whatever it is I'm going to do. What am I going to do to build that belonging and connection with my family and friends? Because I know that will make me feel good. What am I going to do in my relationship with my husband that's going to make me feel good? And what am I going to do to make me feel purposeful at work, right? And I get really intentional about making sure I'm putting these things on the to-do list. On our website, we have a ton of free resources on self-compassion, both for you and for students, so you can check those out and download those. Again, I'm going to give you some home fun. This one is very challenging. The self-compassion assessment is deep, and I would challenge you to take it. Don't do all the assessments at once. Pick one a week and do one to focus on, but I think it's a big aha. We're going to do another breathing exercise. That is one of my very favorite breathing activities to do. I might do it several times a day when I first get up in the morning. I might do it before a session. I might do it from, after a session. All of those kinds of things I want to do. So big ideas here for self-compassion. Pay attention to how you're feeling and how you're thinking and speaking to yourself. Name it to tame it. Recognize the shared humanity that we're all kind of suffering. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to say yes to you. And give yourself some grace. We're all just doing the best we can. Okay, we're going to jump into the next letter, amplifying attention, awareness, and awe. Raise your hand if you've ever done this. You've ever gotten in your car, driven somewhere, got there, and then went, how the hell did I get here? Like, I don't even remember the drive. Okay, super scary. It's scary because more and more accidents are happening, not just from drunk driving or texting while driving, but just distracted from our own minds driving, right? And so while autopilot can be really useful for some things, like brushing your teeth in the morning, as long as you make sure to grab your toothpaste and not lotion or something else, it's not good for us in the long run. We miss out on things, a beautiful sunrise, a beautiful sunset, the smile of a child, a flower blooming. All of those things we miss out when we're just going through the motions. To do two things at once is to do neither. I love this quote because when I first became a school administrator, I used to say this out loud. I'm the best multitasker ever. Not only was I not the best multitasker ever, but I didn't know it at the time, but neurologically speaking, our brain does not multitask. It switches tasks. It does this so quickly, we think we're multitasking. But if I'm standing here talking to you, and all of a sudden I get a text, and I look down at my phone, I think I'm still with you, but I'm not. My attention moves, my flashlight of attention moves here to my phone, stop it there, start it there. And every time we stop and start, not only is it not good for the quality of our work, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it drains us. Just like when you have too many tabs open on your computer or too many apps open on your phone and it drains the battery, if you have too many tabs open in your mind, it drains you too. It's exhausting. And every time you're interrupted, it takes us 50% longer to complete the task, and we have 50% more errors. So the quality of our work goes down, the quantity of our work goes down, and so I'm very attached to all of the letters in the B.R.E.A.T.H.E framework. I love them all. But I think this is one I really want you to take home, and that's to try single tasking. I know it has changed my life, frankly. I know as educators, it's very difficult not to multitask. We're very busy. So I'm not asking you to do it all day. Pick an hour. I'm a morning person, so I do this in the morning. If you're not a morning person, don't do it in the morning. Do it in the afternoon or the evening. But basically, take an hour, divide it up however you will. 3 20-minute segments, 4 15-minute segments, whatever it is. Let's say you do 320. You set your timer on your phone. And for the first 20 minutes, you do whatever you want to do. I'm going to grade papers. I'm going to answer emails. If you're going to answer emails, that's all you do during that 20 minutes. If you get a text, you don't look at it. If you get a call, you don't answer it. If you get a Macy's ad in your emails, you don't go down the rabbit hole of shopping at Macy's. They have sales all the time. You can go back, right? Just answer that. When that alarm goes off, take a little stretch, and then take another 20 minutes and I'm going to grade papers. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to grade papers. Not going to look at emails, not going to text, not going to call. No, I'm just going to do that. And then the next 20 minutes, I'm going to clean the kitchen. Sometimes I look at my kitchen, I'm like, 20 minutes is not going to do it, you know? But then when you're only doing that for 20 minutes, it's amazing what you can get done in a short amount of time if that is your sole focus. So I really, really encourage you to try single tasking. It lowers your stress, and you'll do better work. Now, when we learn to interrupt our autopilot and to focus our attention, then and only then can we experience the awesomeness of awe. What is awe? Awe is that sense of wonder and delight when you see something amazing. It might be, a sunset. It might be a spider spinning a web. It might be the birth of a child or the smile of a child. I tried to capture awe in the faces of these kids here, and it's easy to experience awe. One of the best ways to do that is to go on an awe walk. And in awe walk, I want you to take your phone, and not to call, not to text, not to listen to a podcast, but strictly with the idea I'm going to take pictures. And as you're walking, you take pictures like, oh, look at that cool cloud. Oh, look at that weird bug. Ooh, look at that, all the green, the different shades of green in that planter. When you're doing that, you're really in the moment of catching that awe. It's going to make you feel good. It improves our generosity, our well-being, our humility. And then later on that night or the next day when you're not feeling good, you can pull out those pictures and look at them again. Yesterday on the plane coming here, there was a rainbow that I swear was following us. I mean, it just kept going with us. And here am I next to the window, taking all these pictures so that I can recapture that moment of awe. It was beautiful. So, big ideas here. Interrupt our autopilot, try to start single tasking, and go for an awe walk, or even just go outside and just listen to sounds around you. Just close your eyes and take in the sounds and the smells around you. All right. We're quickly diving into our next letter, tapping into thankfulness and appreciation. This is one that you probably know the most about because every year we have this thing in November called Thanksgiving, and media and social media are flooded with all of these gratitude things. So I'll do the benefits quickly because I think you probably know them, but tapping into gratitude increases our happiness and life satisfaction, joy, pleasure, optimism. It reduces anxiety and depression. It boosts our immune system, helps us sleep better, and it boosts our resilience and our relationships. So how do we get more grateful? Well, one thing is to notice 3 good things. I'm going to go back to my crazy planner. So I have a Panda planner. They don't pay me. I don't know. I got it on Amazon. But every day it asks, the top thing it asks me is, what are 3 things you're grateful for? And it's not a journal. It is a list. Like, it's quick. Sometimes I'm like, this cup of coffee, or that I woke up this morning. Other times it's bigger things. I want you to try and think of, if you're not a morning person again, times in the day when you could just write down 3 good things. You could write it on Post-its and put it in a bowl, and on New Year's Eve, read them all. You could write it in a journal. You could write it on your calendar. It doesn't have to be something super formal, but just look for those 3 good things. It trains your brain. You'll notice I have a picture of hand washing. That's something we do a lot, hopefully. And so every time you wash your hands, that could be a signal to remind you, what are 3 things I'm grateful for? Just now while I'm washing my hands, I'm grateful for running water. I'm grateful for warm running water. I'm grateful for electricity that's lighting up this restroom. So it's things that we take for granted that you could notice too. By doing this, by doing this, hopefully I don't want to take away from Thanksgiving, but it's a nice holiday, but I want to turn Thanksgiving into thanks living, something that we do every day, like how we see the world every single day. Now, when we talk about gratitude, that's really an internal thing. We're grateful for things. If we express that gratitude in the form of appreciation to someone, we actually up the benefits. And not only do we up the benefits for ourselves and for the person receiving the appreciation, but for anybody who witnesses it, right? They go, wow, that was special. That's a sense of belonging. So I'm going to teach you how to do a very special thank you. It's called a 3-part thank you. And in a 3-part thank you, so let's do this. I want you to think about someone this last week or 2 who's done something kind for you. So just get that person in your head. And I want you to think about what they specifically did. So I don't want you to just be thankful for someone in general. Think about somebody who did something kind for you in the last week. What specifically did they do? The second thing that you do in a 3-part thank you is acknowledge the effort that they made. Did they stay up late? Did they get up early? Did they drive out of their way? Did they take work off your plate? Did they take care of something so you could come to this conference? And what was the impact of their effort? Did you get to sleep in? Did you get to go out? Did you get to come to the conference? Did you just feel valued? And then spot their strength. So this is what it looks like in a template. Very specific thank you. Thank you for listening to me talk about what was bothering me. And then looking at their effort. It was so thoughtful of you because I know how busy you've been with work, but you still took time to hear what was going on in my life. And the impact of that, which made me feel valued. And then spotting the strength, you were really good at making other people feel supported. Now I'm going to do something dangerous in a session right now, but I want you to get out your phone because this is so important. I need you to feel what this feels like right now. So you're going to send a 3-part thank you to someone. You're going to use this template. I'm going to give you about 2.5 minutes. Don't tell them I'm making you do it. You might get a response like, are they serving cocktails that early? Like, what's happening? And exactly. Or they might say, yeah, are you in jail? Is everything okay? Are you in the hospital? Because people aren't used to getting these thank yous. So I'm just going to put it out there. You also might get no response at all. And before you write the first word, I want you to be okay with that. Because you're not writing it to get a response. You're writing because thankfulness is good for you, and appreciation is good for you, and you're doing something kind to someone else. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to put on some thank you writing music. You have about 2.5 minutes. Let your thumbs do the talking. Use the template. I want you to remember about appreciation is that not everybody likes to be appreciated in the same way. And so Gallup has a recognition interview. Gallup's a company that's been doing research on employee engagement for years and years and years. And so we have that for you in your folder. And also, you might be familiar with the 5 Love Languages book that came out several years ago for couples, and it's important to know what love language. Well, the same authors wrote a book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation at Work, and so we have some information on that on your hyperlink doc as well. I think what this helps us do is strive for the platinum rule instead of the golden rule. The golden rule is treat others as you would like to be treated. That works well if the other person wants to be treated like you do. But the platinum rule is treat others as they would like to be treated. And I think it's just really important to remember that. So big ideas, look for the good. Try and think of 3 good things often throughout your day. Use the platinum rule when showing appreciation. Ask for appreciation in your love language and give as many 3-part thank yous as you can. Start challenging yourself. Once a week, I'm going to do a 3-part thank you. Twice a week, I'm going to do a 3-part thank you. They're very powerful. Again, on our website, we have a ton of free resources around gratitude. Okay, we're going to dive into H, harnessing our thoughts. We spend very little time in the present moment. We are often ruminating about the past, going, oh, if only I had said this, if only she had done this, if only this had happened this way, which, by the way, it's the past. We can't do anything about that. Or we are worrying about the future. What if this happens? What if he says this? What if she does this? And we end up like worrying about all of these things that never come into fruition. And so when we're ruminating about the past and worrying about the future, we're sort of caught in this thought tornado of overthinking. And it puts us not in the present moment. One of the things that we think about are these pesky little things called ants. Now, ants are, the clinical term for them are cognitive distortions. I like to call them ants because I think that helps visually think about what they do. Just like real life ants come in and cause havoc in our kitchen, these ants, these automatic negative thoughts, crawl into our mind and cause havoc. There are many different species of ants. Here are some of them I'm just going to highlight. So one is comparing. If you find yourself saying things like, you know, he's so much smarter than me, or she does that so much better than me, or I'm not as good as blank, you have a comparing ant running through your mind. Teddy Roosevelt said comparison is the thief of joy, and he was spot on. And he said that way before social media, where we really start comparing ourselves, right? Comparing is not helpful, does not serve us. All or nothing thinking. If you say things like, this always happens to me, or this never happens to me, you are having an ant. Like, I never find a parking space in the front. Or, you know, this always happens to me. I spill on my dress when I'm going somewhere. You can also have these ants about other people. My husband, one of his jobs around the house is taking out the trash, which I'm super grateful for. But then sometimes I go to throw something away, and there's no trash liner in the trash bin. Oh, I see some heads nodding. Do we have shared humanity on that? Right on. But sometimes what I'll say is, oh, he never puts the trash liner back in. But truth be told, once in a while he does remember, so see, that's an ant. I'm going to jump down to shoulding, and I think on your table we have these little placemats, and one of them, I think the one in the back says, stop shoulding on yourself. Let me explain what that means. We say a lot of things like, I should have known that. I should have said that. Shoulding is not goal setting. Shoulding is shaming ourselves into a deep, dark, dirty little thought hole that is very difficult to crawl out of. So I say it carefully so you don't think I'm saying something else, but stop shoulding on yourself, okay? Don't do it. Don't do it. Now, how do we get rid of these ants? Well, just like real life ants, you can't exterminate them forever. They will eventually come back, but you can get better at shooing them away. And one way to do that is to remember that you're the DJ of your own mind. So if you hear a comparing ant start playing in your head, you can change the record. I say that like it's easy. It's not easy, but you can be more mindful to do that. Another way is to really remember these 3 R's, to record. So you don't have to write it down, but just acknowledge I'm having an ant. I actually have a giant ant that somebody bought me. It's like a big metallic ant on my desk at home so that I can just look at it and go, oh, yeah, I'm having an ant. The other thing is to have your friends and family call you out on it if you feel safe doing that. So like Janine, she may say something like, this always happens to me, you know? And I'm like, always? She's like, no, I'm having an ant. I'm like, okay. And then I might say, oh, I should have done that. And she's like, are you shooting on yourself? And I'm like, I'm shooting on myself, right? I told you earlier the strategy, name it to tame it. Literally just going, I'm having an aunt, takes the power out of it. The second thing is to rationalize, to challenge it. So if I say, I never find a parking space in the front, then I can be like a little lawyer against myself and say, nope, Joelle, you did find a parking space last week in front of the grocery store, right? Because a lot of those things are not true. And then the third thing is to replace that negative thought with a more realistic, positive thought. Now, I know we're not talking about students today, but I am going to show you a student example. So we taught kids how to deal with their aunts. And this was done by a young lady going through those 3 R's. So she wrote, I got expelled. Here's her answer around that. I'm the worst child. My parents hate me. I'm a failure. She then rationalized those ants simply by naming what types of ants she was having. I'm catastrophizing, I'm overthinking, and I'm labeling. And then she replaced those thoughts. I made a mistake. I'm going to learn from it. My parents are angry, but they still love me. Now I look at that and I go, a 16-year-old girl figured out what it took me decades to figure out how to do, right? And so there's great power in learning to harness those thoughts and really shoo those ants away. So there's a whole folder. Often answers is something that people resonate with a lot. There's a whole folder on ants that I'm going to send to you tonight that you can investigate more. Okay, we're going into our last letter, empowering empathy. So what is empathy? There are 3 types. Just checking my time. There are 3 types. There's affective empathy. That is feeling with somebody else. If you're watching TV and something happens wonderful to the character and they're happy and you're crying with joy or you're smiling, it's not happening to you. You're simply watching it, but that's affective empathy. If you see something sad and you feel sad, even though it's not happening to you, that's affective empathy. Then we have cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy has nothing to do with feelings, it has to do with thoughts. It's your ability to understand somebody else's perspective, to put yourself in their shoes, if you will. And then we have compassionate empathy. And compassionate empathy is when we use our affective empathy and our cognitive empathy to go, wow, someone's in pain, this is a bad situation, I want to take action, I want to do something to make the situation better. Now, you might say, I thought this is about our own self-resilience and well-being. Empathy sounds like giving to others. Why would you be including that? And the answer is this. Whether we give empathy or receive empathy, our brain loves it. It produces the neurotransmitter oxytocin, which creates a sense of trust and connection and belonging, which we've already talked about, the importance of belonging to our well-being. So how do we get better at this? Well, one way is to get curious, not furious. And I think some of you might have that on your little placemats too. So I wish I had coined this term. I did not. I read it in a magazine many years ago when I had a really long commute to work. And there was always all kinds of traffic. And let's just say that if a car cut me off, colorful language that Ken and Barbie would not be proud of probably came out of my mouth. And not only that, but I would get just more frustrated and fired up. And by the time I got to work, I was grouchy. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this curious, not furious thing while I'm driving. So I'm driving, car cuts me off. I'm like, okay, Joelle, get curious. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious who taught you how to drive. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. All right, I'm curious where you're going. I'm curious if you're on your way to the hospital because someone got hurt. I'm curious if you're on your way to the hospital because someone's having a baby. I'm curious if you're on your way to your first job interview and you're 10 minutes late. Now, what happened was nothing short of miraculous. Not only did I not get furious, I got super into being curious. In fact, I created scenarios for all the cars around me. Like, I'm like, oh, this guy, he's going so slow in the fast lane because his girlfriend just dumped him and he's rereading that text over and over. It'll be okay, buddy. It'll be okay. And then I'm like, oh, this lady, she cut me off, but she has a dog in her car. I love dogs. She must be getting that dog to the vet. Get the dog to the vet, lady, right? Now, the truth is, they're probably just horrible, horrible drivers. But I will never know that, and I can't control them. I can only control me. And so what happened is I really just became amused by the whole thing. And I'm not even lying when I say to you that 99% of the time, I do not get angry in the car. Like, I'll just tell myself a story about what this person does. And it reminds me of the times I've driven less than stellar, right? Not very often, but once in a while, right? And so I'm like, okay, this works in the car, but I'm not really interacting with those people. So let me try this out on my husband. So when my husband says something or does something that results in me feeling hurt or angry or resentful, I try to stop for a moment and ask myself 2 questions. One, what is going on with him that may have led him to say or do whatever he did? Is he hungry? Is he tired? Is he feeling overwhelmed? Is he worried about the bills? Is he worried about his mom? What's happening with him? Because often when people irritate us, the first thing we do is take it personally when it could just be something they're doing. The second question is, what's going on with me that I'm reacting so strongly to it? Because he did the same thing yesterday and I didn't care. Today he did it, I'm like, oh, hell no. Well, then that's probably about me. Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I feeling overwhelmed? And these 2 questions can be a relationship game changer, whether you're talking about your significant other or a colleague or a student. Because again, when someone irritates us, we often say the first thing that comes flying out of our mouth, which isn't always the best option. Even if we don't say it out loud and we think it in our head, that's something negative that we're holding within ourselves. If instead we just pause and go, wonder what's going on with them that may have led to this decision they made. And I wonder what's going on with me that I'm reacting so strongly to it. Asking yourself those 2 questions creates a very purposeful and powerful pause in which to choose your response and to choose to come from a place of empathy and compassion. So work on that, getting curious, not furious. Another thing that we can do is really try to avoid these empathy misses. I think every single person in this room has great intentions, but even with great intentions, we can have a negative impact. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about toxic positivity that sometimes I used to say to people, hey, it's not that bad, right? Again, what I'm saying is get over it. Your pain's not bad. It's minimizing their pain. It is an empathy miss. Another empathy miss, if a colleague comes to you and they say, oh my gosh, I got a speeding ticket on my way to work. And you go with, well, why were you speeding? And why were you speeding there? You know that's where the popo hang out. You shouldn't have been speeding there. That's not helpful, right? You can have a conversation with them later about why they shouldn't speed, but in that moment, they're just looking for connection. They're looking for empathy. When somebody comes to us and they're like, I'm feeling sad, and we say, let's go to the mall, let's go to happy hour. We just want to distract them, right? Again, that's more about our own discomfort with their sadness. That is not what they want. They want you to acknowledge their sadness. One-upping sounds horrible, but I think we do it with the best of intentions. Someone comes to us and they're like, oh my gosh, my car got broken into this weekend. And you're like, oh, that's happened to me too. It's horrible. It's violating. That's empathy. Crossing that line and going, let me tell you about the time my car got broken into, and then making it about your past situation rather than their current pain. This last piece, responding with solutions, is really, really hard for us not to do as educators. One, we're super smart. We know all the answers. And we want to help people. So when someone comes to us with a problem, we immediately jump in to trying to fix it. When I first became a principal, I'd come home from work and I'd be like, to my husband, oh my God, this happened and this happened. And he would go, oh, you should totally talk to this person and you should do this. And I'm like, I don't want you to fix it. When I know how to fix it, I want you to go, that sucks. You had a hard day. He's so well trained now. I'll call him and I'll go, oh my God, the technology didn't work or something happened, the plane was late. And he'll go, that sucks. And I'm like, I know, right? Like, you get me. And so I'm not saying there's not a time for problem solving. It's not your initial place to go. Connect first. Then you can say, hey, do you want me to help problem solve? And the other person will tell you, yeah. Or they'll go, no, I'm not even in that space yet. But let them give you the time of when that is to go. I'm going to show you a quick example. I'm not going to show you. I'll send this to you. This is from the movie. Actually, I'm going to show you. What the heck? Let's go. Watch his response. Joy, with very good intentions, because her name is Joy, engaged in many of those empathy misses we just talked about, distracting, trying to fix, minimizing. Sadness, what did she do differently? Acknowledged, validated, literally sat in the sadness with him. And that not only brings the other person, but us those feelings of oxytocin and closeness. Equally as important to how we respond when somebody tells us something tough is how we respond when somebody tells us good news. And so if you go into work next week and somebody's like, hey, I just found out I'm going to be a dad, and you're like, really? That's cool. That would be an example of passive constructive response. You didn't say anything negative, but you didn't engage. If you go, somebody says, I just found out I'm going to be a dad, and you're like, you're going to be a dad? All right. Can you make sure you turn in your grades in on time? That would be an example of a passive destructive response. You had a little dig in there. If you said, oh my God, you're going to be a dad? You're never going to have time for yourself now. Good luck with that, buddy. That would be an example of an active destructive response. You're literally taking their joy and shredding it. If instead somebody said, hey, I just found out I'm going to be a dad, and you went, oh my gosh, that's amazing. How long have you been trying? Who was the first person you called? Are you going to name it after me? That would be an active constructive response, or ACR for short. The key to an active constructive response, by the way, it's one of the best predictors of relationship success, is to show enthusiasm. And it cannot be fake. You don't have to like what they like. You are just being excited for them. Just like you can sit in the sadness with someone who's in pain, you can stand in the joy with someone who's excited about something. And the second thing is to ask questions. Tell me more about that. What was that like? When you ask questions, you're allowing them to relive their joy. And because emotions are contagious, that will come right back and bite you in a good way as well. So things to remember about empathy. Get curious, not furious. It's not about saying the right thing. It's about connecting. Avoid those empathy misses, engage in empathetic listening, and engage in active constructive responding. That was our very quick version of our Taking Time to Breathe framework. Build belonging, reflect on your purpose, engage in self-compassion, amplify attention, awareness, and awe, tap into thankfulness and appreciation, harness those pesky thoughts, and empower empathy. Your feedback is very, very important to us, and we'll also share it with the conference leaders. So if you could scan that. If for some reason you miss it, I will also email it to you tonight if you signed up to receive the resources. If you came in late and didn't see that QR code, I'll put it up at the very end and you can get that. But we really appreciate your comments. It's also a good reflection for you to see what resonated with you. All right. Last but not least, I'm going to leave us with a closing video. You will need to watch this video because there are some subtitles. They talk in a very fancy British accent, and you might need subtitles. But it also explains a little bit about this experiment.
I would describe my political views as the new right.
I say that I'm left.
Feminism today is man-hating.
I would describe myself as a feminist, 100%.
I don't believe that climate change exists. We're not taking enough action on climate change. And it's about time these people got off the high horse and started looking for credible problems that actually exist.
It's absolutely critical that trans people have their own voice.
That's not right. You can't, you're a man, be a man, or you're a female, be a female. Women do need to remember that we need you to have our children.
Could I be trans if someone says women's space in the home?
Right, okay, well, I'm an expert at flat packs. If you've any trouble, just watch me.
So looks like I've got your instructions here.
I think so. Let me help you.
Let's just stop it there. Describe what it is like to be you in 5 adjectives.
Okay. Frustrating.
Dedicated.
Opinionated.
Lucky.
Ambitious.
Offensive.
Solemn. I have ups and downs.
Strong.
I want to say attacked. Misunderstood.
Name 3 things you and I have in common.
We're both male, we're
each other better than people who've known each other for 10 minutes should.
You seem quite ambitious and positive, and you got this really got a glow. Do you know what I'm saying? Your aura is pretty cool.
I'm sensing, are you former military or something?
People have said that, but there is no history. So are you then ex-military?
Yeah.
If you're ex-military, I'm very proud of you already.
Well,
So,
I grew up in a bit of a rough state. I've experienced homelessness. I've known what it's like to have absolutely nothing.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely most grateful just for life.
We've only just met, but I think you're the sort of person that would listen to me and we'd have a discussion rather than, oh yeah, you could hang out with the man.
let's go. Got a chance?
Well, you're right, mate. If we turn and look.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
So basically, that's what we just put a bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you are. Each take a bottle and place it on its corresponding markings on the bar.
Attention. Please now stand to watch a short film.
Feminism today is definitely an excuse for misandry, man-hating.
If somebody said to me that climate change is destroying the world, then I'd say that is total piffle.
So transgender, it is very odd. We're not set up to understand or see things like that.
I am a daughter, a wife. I am transgender.
I feel like the battle for feminism definitely isn't done. The fight is never going to be over, if I'm honest with you.
You now have a choice. You may go, or you can stay and discuss your differences over a beer.
I'm only joking.
Well, I'm having a drink. I'm having a drink. Yeah.
I would discuss.
Beer.
Yeah, beer and discuss.
Cheers.
At the end of the day, mate, I'm reaching out to people, yeah. And you know, even if you wanted to convince people about your point, the productive thing to do would be to sit down. Engage.
I've been brought up in a way where everything's black and white, but life isn't black and white.
Yeah, I'm just me.
Yes.
Smash the patriarchy.
I'll give you my mobile number, you give me yours,
Uh-huh.
and we'll keep in touch. I'd have to tell my girlfriend that I'll be texting another girl.
Okay, so I'm not promoting Heineken in any way. However, they created a space where strangers with opposite viewpoints had a chance to connect before they learned those viewpoints. And in our very divided world, I challenge you to seek for more connections because we are more alike than we think. And I'm going to leave you with this thought. The last few years have been kind of a hot mess in education, and I don't know that they're going to get better. I hope so. But when you're out there doing the work that you do and you say, why am I doing this? Is it worth the effort? Try and remember this quote from Peter Block, who wrote the book Community. He said, how do you change the world? One room at a time. Which room? The one you're in, sharing who you are. Thank you very much. I'll put up that QR code if you didn't get it. Go have a wonderful lunch. I appreciate it.